Okay, we're in the Gemara. This is the Daf Yomi. We're in Avodah Zarah, Daf 52. So bear with me. This is going to be probably a little bit of a longer one, just like 51 was a little long. But anyway, it says, since the verse does not apply to places that were themselves worshipped, apply it to the matter of vessels that were used for idol worship. It is from here that the sages stated, a Gentile's object of idol worship is not prohibited until it is worshipped, but a Jew's object of idol worship is forbidden immediately. So the Gemara questions how the halacha with regard to an object of idol worship is derived from this verse. But didn't we interpret this verse as being stated with regard to vessels used in idolatrous worship and not to an object of idol worship? The Gemara answers, the verse states, you shall destroy all the places where the nations that you are dispossessed serve their gods, Deuteronomy 12:2. The verse juxtaposes their gods, quote, their gods, to, quote, the places. That is, the vessels used to serve them. Just as the vessels are not forbidden until they are used for worship, so too their gods, the idols, are also not forbidden until they are worshipped. And Rabbi Akiva, who does not consider the terms juxtaposed, he could say to you that the word et, written at the verse before the term their gods, separates the matter of their gods from the matter of the vessels. So et being aleph tav, okay? So the Gemara asks, and as for the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, we found a source for the halacha that a Gentile's object of idol worship is not prohibited until it is worshipped. From where does he derive that a Jew's object of idol worship is prohibited immediately? The Gemara answers it is based on logical reasoning. From the fact that a Gentile's idol is not forbidden until it is worshipped, it stands to reason that a Jew's idol is prohibited immediately. The Gemara asks, why not say that a Jew's idol is not forbidden at all? The Gemara answers, now the status of a Jew's idol cannot be revoked, and the idol requires internment. So is it possible that it does not become prohibited? The Gemara challenges, but one could say that a Jew's idol was forbidden only once it is worshipped, just as a Gentile's idol is forbidden only once it is worshipped. The Gemara answers, the verse states, and I took your sin, the calf that you had made, and I burned it with fire, Deuteronomy 9:21, which indicates that from the time of its making, its worshippers were liable for the sin. The Gemara asks, why not say that this matter applies only with regard to rendering the man who made the idol liable for the sin? But the object of idol worship does not become prohibited until it is worshipped. The Gemara answers, the verse states, cursed be the man who shall make a graven or molten image, an abomination to the Lord, the work of the hands of the craftsman, and shall set it up in a hidden place, Deuteronomy 27:15, which indicates that from the time of its making, the person who made the idol was liable to be cursed. The Gemara asks, why not say that this matter applies only with regard to rendering the man who made the idol liable to be cursed, but the object of idol worship does not become prohibited until it is worshipped? The Gemara answers, it is written, an abomination to the Lord, Deuteronomy 27:15. This indicates that the idol itself is an abomination and is therefore prohibited from the time that it is made. So the Gemara asks, and as for Rabbi Akiva, who does not maintain that a Jew's idol was forbidden from the time that it is made, how does he interpret this verse? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Akiva explains that the term an abomination means an object that leads to abomination, but itself is not considered an abomination before it is worshipped. The Gemara explains the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, and as for the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, from where does he derive that a Gentile's object of idol worship is prohibited immediately? Ula said, the verse states, quote, the graven images of their gods you shall burn with fire. You shall not covet the silver or the gold that is on them, and take it for yourself, lest you be snared thereby, for it is an abomination to the Lord your God. Deuteronomy 7:25. So the term graven images indicates that from the time that the Gentile engraves and carves the stone into an idol, it becomes a god and is forbidden. So the Gemara asks, and the other Tana, Rabbi Yishmael, how does he interpret this verse? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Yishmael requires that verse for that which Rav Yosef teaches in a Braita, as Rav Yosef teaches, from where is it derived that a Gentile may revoke the status of an object as his god? It is derived from a verse, as it is stated, the graven images of Pesile, their gods, you shall burn with fire. Deuteronomy 27, verse 5. So the Gemara asks, and the other Tana, Rabbi Akiva, from where does he derive this halacha? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Akiva derives it from the interpretation of Shmuel, as Shmuel raises a contradiction. It is written, the graven images of their gods, so Pesile, you shall burn with fire. You shall not covet the silver or the gold that is on them, Deuteronomy 7:25. And in the continuation of the verse, it is written, quote, and take it for yourselves, indicating that one is permitted to take the silver and gold. How can these texts be reconciled? If the Gentile engraved and carved the stone as a god, it is immediately rendered forbidden, and the prohibition, quote, you shall not covet, applies. If the Gentile revoked, or pasalo, the idol's status as a god, the continuation of the verse, quote, and take it for yourself, applies. The Gemara asks, and as for the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, we found a source for the halacha that a Gentile's object of idol worship is prohibited immediately. So from where do we derive that a Jew's object of idol worship is not forbidden until it is worshipped? So Rav Yehuda said that the verse states, cursed be the man who shall make a graven or molten image and shall set it up in a hidden place, Deuteronomy 27:15. So this indicates that the idol is not rendered forbidden until the idolater performs in the service of the idol those matters or rites that are performed in a hidden place. So the Gemara asks in the other Tana, Rabbi Yishmael, how does he interpret this verse? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Yishmael requires that verse for that which Rabbi Yitzchak says, as Rabbi Yitzchak says, from where is it derived that a Jew's object of idol worship requires internment. This is derived from the verse as it is stated, quote, and shall set it up in a hidden place, Deuteronomy 27:15. And Rabbi Yitzchak interprets as requiring one to inter the idol in a hidden place. The Gemara asks in the other Tana, Rabbi Akiva, from where does he derive this halacha? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Akiva derives it from that which Rav Chisda says, as Rav Chisda says that Rav says, from where is it derived that a Jew's object of idol worship requires internment? It is derived from a verse as it is stated, quote, you should not plant for yourself an Asherah of any kind of tree beside the altar of the Lord your God, Deuteronomy 16:21. The verse juxtaposes an Asherah, a tree used as part of idolatrous rites, to the altar. This indicates that just as the altar requires internment, so too an Asherah requires internment. The Gemara asks in the other Tana, Rabbi Yishmael, how does he interpret this verse? The Gemara answers, Rabbi Yishmael requires that verse for that which Reish Lakish says, as Reish Lakish says, anyone who appoints over the community a judge who is unfit for the position due to his lack of knowledge or wickedness is considered as though he plants an Asherah among the Jewish people. As it is stated, judges and officers you shall make for yourselves in all your gates, Deuteronomy 16:18. And juxtaposed to it is the verse, you shall not plant for yourself an Asherah of any kind of tree beside the altar of the Lord your God, Deuteronomy 16:21. And I want to point out, whenever it says internment, it's using the word geniza. Okay, so Rav Hamnuna raises, Rav Ashi says, if one appoints an unsuitable individual as a judge in a place where there are Torah scholars, it is as though he planted an Asherah next to the altar, as it is stated, beside the altar of the Lord your God. So Rav Hamnuna raises a dilemma. If one yielded a broken vessel for idol worship, what is the halacha? The Gemara asks, with regard to whose idol worship does Rav Hamnuna raise the dilemma? If we say that Rav Hamnuna is referring to a Gentile's idol worship, that is difficult, as both according to Rabbi Yishmael and according to Rabbi Akiva, vessels used in idolatrous worship are considered accessories of idol worship. And accessories of idol worship are not prohibited until they are used for worship. Rather, Rav Hamnuna is referring to a Jew's idol worship. The Gemara asks, in accordance with whose opinion does Rav Hamnuna raise the dilemma? If we say that he raises the dilemma in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, this is difficult. Now that the idol itself is not prohibited until it is worshipped, is it necessary to state that its accessories are not forbidden until they are used for idol worship? Rather, perhaps Rav Hamnuna raises the dilemma in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael, who says that a Jew's idol is prohibited immediately. The Gemara suggests an explanation of the dilemma. What is the halacha with regard to a Jew's accessories of idol worship? Do we learn the halacha with regard to a Jew's accessories from the halacha with regard to a Gentile's accessories? Just as in the case of the Gentile's accessories of idol worship, they are not forbidden until they are used for idol worship. So to here, in the case of a Jew's accessories of idol worship, they are not forbidden until they are used for idol worship. Or perhaps the halacha is learned from the halacha with regard to a Jew's object of idol worship itself. Just as the idol itself is prohibited immediately, so too its accessories are prohibited immediately. The Gemara rejects this explanation. If that is the explanation of Rav Hamnuna's dilemma, why does he specifically raise the dilemma with regard to one who yielded a broken vessel? Let him raise the dilemma with regard to one who fashioned a vessel for idolatrous worship. The Gemara answers, Rav Hamnuna is referring to a vessel that was used for idol worship before it broke, and he is raising the dilemma with regard to the matter of previous ritual impurity. As we learned in a Mishnah, Kalim 11, verse 1, with regard to metal vessels, both their flat vessels, which have no repositories, and their receptacles, vessels that have repositories, are all impure if they came into contact with the primary source of ritual impurity. If they broke, they thereby become purified. If one remade the broken vessels into new vessels, they reassume their previous impurity. And this is the dilemma that Rav Hamnuna is raising. When the Mishnah teaches that a vessel that is remade resumes its impurity, does this matter apply only to impurity by Torah law, but in the case of impurity by rabbinic law, such as the impurity of the object of idol worship, it does not apply? Or perhaps there is no difference between impurity by Torah law and impurity by rabbinic law? The Gemara asks, if that is the explanation of Rav Hamnuna's dilemma, why does he specifically discuss a vessel used for idol worship? Let him raise the dilemma with regard to any other type of impurity by rabbinic law. So the Gemara answers, Rav Hamnuna is raising two dilemmas, one of which stems from the other. Is impurity by rabbinic law resumed, or is it not resumed? And if you say that it is not resumed, what is the halakha with regard to the impurity of an object of idol worship? Did the sages render its status like that of impurity by Torah law due to the stringency of idol worship, or not? The Gemara concludes, the dilemma shall stand unresolved. So the Rabbi Yochanan raised a dilemma to Rabbi Yanai. With regard to an offering consisting of food brought in idolatrous worship, what is the halakha? Is the revocation of their status as an object of idol worship by a Gentile effective to purify them from the ritual impurity of an offering brought in idolatrous worship, or is it not effective? The Gemara suggests, and let him raise the dilemma with regard to whether revocation of vessels status purifies vessels used in idol worship from their impurity. The Gemara explains, Rabbi Yochanan does not raise the dilemma with regard to vessels, since they have the ability to attain purity, and by being immersed in a ritual bath, and therefore their impurity can be certainly also be nullified. When he raises the dilemma, it is only with regard to food, which cannot be purified in a ritual bath. So the Gemara suggests, let him raise the dilemma with regard to whether revoking its status purifies the object of idol worship itself. In a case where it consists of food, the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yochanan does not raise the dilemma with regard to the object of idol worship itself, as since its prohibition is nullified, its impurity is also nullified. When he raises the dilemma, it is only with regard to an offering consisting of food brought in idolatrous worship. What is the halakha? Does one say that since its prohibition is not nullified in accordance with the statement of Rav Gidel, who teaches that the prohibition that takes effect with regard to offerings brought in idolatrous worship is never nullified, therefore the impurity is also not nullified? Or perhaps only their prohibition, which is by Torah law, is not nullified, but their impurity, which is by rabbinic law, is nullified. So the Gemara concludes, the dilemma shall stand unresolved. Rabbi Yoshi ben Shaul asked Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, with regard to vessels that were used in the temple of Onias, what is the halakha with regard to using them in the temple? And he raised this dilemma according to the opinion of the one who says that the temple of Onias was not a temple of idol worship, as we learned in a Mishnah, Menachot 109a. Priest that served in the temple of Onias may not serve in the temple that is in Jerusalem. And needless to say, those priests who served in the temple of something else, idol worship, may not serve in the temple in Jerusalem. This distinction indicates that the temple of Onias was not a temple of idol worship. It was used for the service of God, but it violated the prohibition against sacrificing offerings outside of the temple in Jerusalem. The Gemara explains the dilemma. Does one say that it is only the priest that the sages... Does one say that it is only the priest that the sages penalize by preventing them from serving in the temple, as they possess awareness and are responsible for their actions, but they did not institute a similar decree with regard to vessels, as they are inanimate? Or perhaps there is no difference, and the decree also applies to the vessels. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi said to Rabbi Yoshi ben Shaul, the vessels that were used in the temple of Onias are prohibited, and we possessed knowledge of a verse from which this halacha was derived, but we forgot which verse it is. So Rabbi Yoshi ben Shaul raised an objection to this ruling from a verse referring to vessels of the temple that Ahaz had used for idol worship. All the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away when he acted treacherously, we have prepared and sanctified, and behold, they are before the altar of the Lord. 2 Chronicles 29:19. What is it not the case that the term we have prepared means that we immerse them in a ritual bath, and the term sanctified means that we sanctified them to be used again in the temple? This would indicate that the vessels may be used in the temple even though they were used in idolatrous worship. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi said to Rabbi Yoshi ben Shaul, blessed are you to heaven, as you have returned my lost verse to me. That verse is the forgotten source of the halacha that Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi stated, and it should be interpreted as follows. We have prepared means that we interred them, and sanctified means that we sanctified other vessels in their stead, as the vessels used by Ahaz were forbidden, and the same applies to the vessels from the temple of Onias. The Gemara suggests, let us say that the Mishnah supports Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi's opinion, Midot 1:6. The northeast chamber of the chamber of the hearth was the chamber in which the Hasmoneans sequestered the altar stones that the people of Greece desecrated. And Rav Sheshet says this means that they desecrated the stones by using them for idol worship. This indicates that temple vessels that were used in idolatrous worship can no longer be used and must be sequestered. So Rav Papa said, that case of the altar stones is different, because there a sage found a verse and interpreted it homiletically, as it is written, quote, and they shall profane my secret place, and robbers shall enter into it and profane it, Ezekiel 7:22. The verse indicates that when the Gentiles entered the temple and desecrated it, the altar was desacralized and acquired non-sacred status. Consequently, when the stones were subsequently used for idolatrous worship, they were rendered forbidden even for non-sacred use. The Gemara explains why the altar stones were sequestered. The Hasmonean said, what should we do to revoke the stones' forbidden status? Shall we break them? This is not possible, as the Merciful One states in the Torah, you shall build the altar of the Lord your God of unhewn stones. So Deuteronomy 27, verse 6. Shall we saw them without breaking them? This is also not a viable option, as the Merciful One states in the Torah, you shall lift up no iron tool upon them, Deuteronomy 27:5. There was therefore no alternative to sequestering the stones. The Gemara asks, but why did the Hasmoneans have no alternative? Let them break the stones and take them for themselves. Didn't Rav Oshaya say the sages wished to sequester all the silver and gold in the world because of the silver and gold of Jerusalem, most of which was consecrated to the temple treasury and became mixed with other silver and gold? And we discussed it and asked, is Jerusalem the majority of the world, that all of the silver and gold of the world should be forbidden, as perhaps it came from Jerusalem? Rather, Abaye said, the sages wished to sequester all the worn-out dinars of Hadrian and Trajan because of the coins of Jerusalem, as it was known that these coins contained a large quantity of the temple treasury's gold and silver. They did not permit the use of these coins until they found a verse in the Torah indicating that it is permitted. It says, and robbers shall enter into it and profane it, Ezekiel 7:22. The Gemara answers the two cases are not comparable. There the coins of Jerusalem had not been used in service of the Most High, and they were only consecrated. Here, since the stones of the altar had been used in the service of the Most High, it is not proper conduct for an ordinary person to make use of them, and therefore the Hasmoneans sequestered the stones. So, back to the Mishnah says a Gentile can revoke the status of his object of idol worship and the status of the idol of another Gentile. But a Jew cannot revoke the status of the object of idol worship of a Gentile. One who revokes the status of an object of idol worship thereby revokes the status of its accessories, but if he revokes the status of its accessories alone are rendered permitted, but the object of idol worship itself remains prohibited. So the Gemara now says, Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi taught Rabbi Shimon, son of Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi, the following version of the Mishnah. So a Gentile can revoke the status of his object of idol worship and the status of the idol of another Gentile. So Rabbi Shimon said to him, my teacher in your youth, that is when you were younger, you taught us a different version of the Mishnah. A Gentile can revoke the status of his object of idol worship and the status of the object of idol worship of a Jew. So the Gemara asks, can the status of a Jew's idol be revoked? But isn't it written, quote, and shall set it up in a hidden place, Deuteronomy 27:15, from which the sages derive that a Jew's idol requires internment. So Rabbi Hillel, son of Rabbi Volus, Rabbi Hillel, son of Rabbi Volus, said, no, this halacha is necessary in a case where the Gentile has partnership in the idol, and therefore it is possible to say that its status can be revoked. So the Gemara asks, and what did Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi hold in his youth, and what did he hold in his old age? The Gemara answers, in his youth he held that the Jew worships the idol based on the intention of the Gentile. Once the Gentile revokes the status of his share in the idol, the status of the share of the Jew is also revoked. But in his old age, Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi held that the Jew worships the idol based on his own intentions. Therefore, when the Gentile revokes the status of the object of idol worship, he revokes the status of his own share, but the status of the share of the Jew is not revoked. So there are those who teach Rabbi Hillel's statement with regard to the latter clause of the Mishnah, a Jew cannot revoke the status of the object of idol worship of a Gentile. The Gemara asks, isn't that obvious? Said Hillel, son of Rabbi Volus, and that's the end of Daf 52. Thanks for watching.